Welcome to the Doom Scroll News Report here on Radio Taiwan International, where I, Hanna Belinsky, and my co-host,
Amanda Stevens,
two writers, political by necessity, cover some of the biggest international news stories dominating our news feeds from the last week. I'm Hanna Belinsky, and this week we're tackling what's going on in Northern Ireland, at least as of our date of recording, the Friday before this episode airs on the 15th, and about the way AI has become the topic du jour of graduation commencement speeches. Not everyone is a proponent, though. Least of all, Pope Leo, who is quickly becoming a friend of the pod.
I was just saying, like, I'm becoming a fan.
Me too.
I was really upset to see Francis go. I think he's one of the best we've ever had
He
so
was
far as popes
good.
go.
I thought so.
As far as popes go, I was a little, I don't know. Leo wasn't on my radar.
No, he was, a dark horse for all of us.
Yeah.
That's how we described him, I think, in our episode.
When I see Pope Leo up there, I'm proud to be both religious and an American. And there's not a lot of other things that make me feel that way.
God.
For either one of those.
I know we're both chomping at the bit to get to rip on AI again, but I think it's really important to cover what's happening in Belfast right now, because the news has been quite harrowing.
When it went really fast. It happened so
super
fast.
Just like over the course of a few days.
Yeah.
Now, it starts back on the evening of June 8th when a 30-year-old Sudanese man named Hadi Alodid attacked Stephen Ogilvy, a man in his 40s, with a kitchen knife on a residential street. Ogilvy survived, thanks due in large part to bystander intervention, but he was hospitalized in serious condition with grave injuries to his eyes, face, and back. Not long after this incident, hundreds of masked men took to the streets, torching homes and vehicles belonging mostly to ethnic minority residents and setting up checkpoints to search cars for foreign nationals. At least 3 houses, a Middle Eastern supermarket, a Gilder bus, and numerous vehicles were burned across the city. Nearby towns Portadown, Newton Abbey, and Derry also saw a bit of violence and traffic disruptions, including a Turkish barber shop that was attacked in Ballyclare. Now, although Alodid attacking Ogilvy was the incendiary event, this riot is part of a pattern of similar events that have been observed in Northern Ireland. Just 1 year before, anti-immigration riots broke out in Ballymena after 2 Romanian Roma teenagers were charged with attempted rape after allegedly assaulting a teenage girl. Those riots lasted several days and resulted in most of the Roma population being driven out. And a year before that, riots and protests took place after a mass stabbing of girls at a dance class in Southport by a British teenager born to Rwandan parents. But the narrative that was spread online about that person, which was what first stoked the flame for rioting, was that he was a Muslim and asylum seeker.
Of course.
The classic other, basically. Any other details don't really matter. Immigration has been a sticking point, not just for the UK, but for the US for quite some time now. Why do you think this is? Why is everyone so extra spooked by the other now? Or has it always been this way, really? And it's just that they are now being enabled by new forces and by political discourse.
I don't think it's anything new.
Yeah,
I think
right?
that this has always been this way.
Sure.
I also, I feel like for just about everything that we mentioned, you can see another counterpoint that has happened. The Romanian incident, for example, though obviously, like I say, these are not the same thing, but it does remind me of what happened in the United States with that black boy in the elevator and the white woman who accused him of trying to assault her. She was found out after his death many years later that she lied about it.
Oh my God, this has happened time and time again in the United States.
I'm not saying that's what happened about the Romani people. But what I was thinking about when I was reading this is a terrible event.
Yes.
This is a terrible event. This is a terrible act of violence.
Yes.
The incendiary thing is a terrible act of violence.
It was.
However, look at all of the reports of violence on that day. how many acts of violence perpetrated even on that day were by Northern Irelanders against Northern Irelanders, white Northern Irelanders against white Northern Irelanders of the same caliber or maybe even worse caliber? And why don't you hear about those?
Yeah, the
narrative.
Week, yeah.
How many white Northern Irelanders attacked other white Northern Irelanders? And I'm going to bring it up because I think it does matter.
Yes.
I think that it is a race-based thing because now we're attacking or we're seeking out the other who is now suspiciously not white.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's always a reason. There's always a reason to dislike somebody. Like
sure.
They have weird food we don't understand. They're taking our jobs. We feel insecure. I think jobs and those things, like it's a time of insecurity.
Yes, it
globally.
is. Yeah.
And so people are looking for a scapegoat.
Yep.
And the easiest scapegoat is the people I don't understand who are new to my country, who I see still working, regardless of what they're doing, because it doesn't actually matter. People are literally just looking for a scapegoat. And then you're about to get into this, but that includes people who aren't actually there.
Yeah, yes.
And people who just have a political grievance that they want to get off their chest. And I think that makes things much, much worse.
Yes. Being scared of the big bad foreigner is really, it's a tale as old as time.
But it's actually in Dracula, too.
But now you have to factor in the internet, right? You know, in the past, it would be like the mob would come to your door and be like, hey, we're going to burn down so-and-so's farm. Do you want to come along? Now you can just get on your device.
You don't even have to be present. You can just like enjoy joining the mob.
Right.
The lynch mob.
Something common to all of these cases that I've mentioned, the case from this year, last year, the year previous to that, is that far-right groups and figures were deliberately spreading misinformation and or outright calling on people to mobilize through websites like Facebook and X.
Yeah.
Elon Musk himself amplified any posts relating to these protests.
It should surprise no one.
Not surprised. Research published in April 2026 specifically studied far-right activist Tommy Robinson. This guy is active in the UK. Tommy Robinson's methods during the 2024 Southport riots, which has since essentially become the template for both subsequent events.
Yay.
And these researchers found a consistent pattern of what they termed indirect mobilization, whereby they reframe protesters as the concerned British public. They amplify the narrative around child safety. You know, everybody cares about child safety.
But what about the children?
Right. And they portray police and the government as betrayers, creating these emotional conditions where violence feels like the right and the just way to respond, but without ever explicitly telling people go burn down buildings and blow up cars. In this way, they of course have plausible deniability. Oh, I never told people to riot. I just strongly
said that
suggested
we should burn the building.
Yeah. Should you feel inclined to violence, well, that is a valid response to what's going on. You're so valid. Here's the thing, right? There are laws that apply to people who incite violence. For example, you know, you can't shout fire in a crowded theater.
Yeah.
But this is basically like Elon is posting, the building deserves to burn to millions of people.
They then set fire to 10 residential homes.
Horrible.
Anyway, go on.
I feel like a theme of this whole Trump administration and all of the surrounding cronies, all of the uber rich fellas,
momentum around there.
I think a lot of what they do is they take advantage of how slow the legal system is to they just do whatever they can get away with as quickly as possible. So how do we catch the law up with something like this without potentially impeding legitimate protest movements? Because that's the thing, is whatever you say about this could be then used for basically fascist reasons. It literally feels like every other day we're saying some version of, he can't keep getting away with it, but like, he really can't, right? Like, where do we draw the line?
The way that we so far have protected legitimate protests, as you say, is by like looking at people's intentions behind speech or looking at patterns of behavior. And that's what is difficult to
You have to like build a case, basically.
Yeah, because what this, and especially reading after like what Elon Musk did, and one, don't be surprised. Remember, he's a white supremacist, everybody.
Yeah.
Literally, he's a white supremacist.
He is.
He will jump on the bandwagon to throw anybody who is not the right kind of white
pretty much
under the bus. and into a fire, literally. So keeping that in mind, like it sort of reminded me of what happened in Sri Lanka like 7 years ago, where these are not the similar case, but the idea that misinformation spread so fast online in a very scary time when a lot was happening, people didn't know where to turn. The media, the actual media, is having a hard time keeping up with what's happening socially, and people get caught up in this mob mindset. Right? But you can't do a lot about it in the moment besides just try to put out speaking metaphorically, but literally put out the fires that you see right there. That's what's really scary and hard about those times. When it comes to the law itself, I don't know if there is a better way forward, but I do think that right now, Musk himself, if we were to look at his actions where he literally deliberately stoked this violence so he would say otherwise, I think on the books right now, he's not going to face any consequences for 2 months. He is not going to be regulated by the government yet, but by the online regulator.
Right.
On paper, that is a good solution. In reality, it's like what you said about like, well, I know I'll be able to get away with it for the next 2 months. That gives me 2 months time to come up with a good defense and buy a lawyer.
Sure.
I do feel like looking at patterns of behavior and also the effects of your actions is something that we have to keep taking into account.
I do think that, words matter, how we define things matter. And the word pogrom has been flung around with regard to these most recent riots in Belfast.
I learned this word this week.
So for anyone who doesn't know, historically, pogroms are the kind of targeted riot or mob attack that often took place against Jewish populations way back in the day. But the word has since evolved to refer to any similar act of violence against a specific ethnic, religious, or national minority. Ethnic cleansing, in other words, which is...
Everyone has their own regional variant.
Right. And in Ballymena 2025, after those riots, like I mentioned, Roma people left. 2/3 of the Roma population were like, okay, fine, let's just leave since people clearly don't want us here.
And it's safer.
And that is, by any functional definition, a successful ethnic cleansing. Northern Ireland's Social Democratic and Labour Party leader Claire Hanna was the first to use the word pogrom to describe these incidents. And although that's bound to get nitpicked to death, I think it's a starting point, at least. Or is it? What do you think it's going to take for people to start to redefine these so-called riots in their mind?
This is something that really drives me crazy because if we were to talk about like language, this is like prescriptivist versus descriptivist. Where it's like people are like, well, that's not what the word literally means, but
this is the basis of all the legal arguments.
This is the touch point. But this is the touch point. This is like when you call somebody a Nazi and there are people who are like, actually, there's only ever one Nazi regime and it's the one that happened in Germany. I don't care. I don't care because this is the touch point and because this is what they're trying to build right now. Right. And so it's the thing of like, you just got to start calling a spade a spade. This is a race riot.
I agree.
You're inciting violence. This is a pogrom. This is, and I'm sure people will be upset. This is a lynch mob. This is literally what you did. You targeted people. You don't know anything about these people. We know this because we know the people that you were targeting and we can see that there were people who didn't do anything wrong. You don't know these people. You just know what they look like.
Right.
Like I said, in times of instability, we're always like looking for a scapegoat. And it's easy to blame the people that are new in town, essentially. But people who are doing this need to be honest with themselves. And if you're just upset about the word, then I think that reflects that you don't want to be associated with what it means. Because on some level, you don't want to reconcile.
It's not right.
And you know.
Yeah. So obviously everyone's talking about AI in some way or another, including the two of us right here on our program on a regular basis. Yeah. There is unfortunately a lot to be said, and the conversation is far from over, probably only just getting started, really. One thing I've noticed is that it's coming up a lot in commencement speeches at university graduation ceremonies. Have you been seeing these headlines pop up?
I haven't, but I'm not surprised.
So for those out of the loop, I'll give you a quick rundown. At the University of Central Florida, real estate executive Gloria Caulfield told graduates that the rise of artificial intelligence is the next industrial revolution. And she was booed.
I think she's right, though.
And then, she is right. And then Big Machine Records CEO Scott Borchetta also got booed at Middle Tennessee State University for talking up AI. And his response to the booing was, deal with it. Like I said, it's a tool.
He's right.
Yeah, he is also right, but, it sounds like a tool.
He's a tool as well.
Then, former Google CEO Eric Schmidt was repeatedly booed at the University of Arizona after bringing up that the architects of AI had been named Time's 2025 Person of the Year.
I do support that. But the Person of the Year is always who made the biggest difference, not who was the best. So actually, unfortunately, I'm sorry, guys, he's right.
But they're all right.
They're all right. I don't like it.
But they're not reading the room. Like, the kids clearly don't want to hear about this.
Yeah, because they're not going to get employed.
Right. So there was one notable exception, and that was Daily Show host Ronnie Chieng, who opened his Harvard Class Day address with, can I just say FAI, 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 to a roar of approval. He went on to bring up how so many other graduation speakers at colleges across the United States were encouraging everyone to master AI, and he instead encouraged them to destroy it, with the notable exception, of course, in the application of AI to things like medicine and physics, where it actually is useful and life-changing. Yeah. But obviously, if you're using it that way, then you're not the problem. My question is, are this many people really that tone deaf about AI? I know it's hard for the two of us to fathom being AI fans, but why on earth would you think your speech about how AI is totally epic is appropriate when it is, at this very moment, shredding the job market that those new graduates are entering for the first time?
I mean, that's the thing is you could be right or you could be liked. But also the idea is a commencement speech is supposed to be
inspiring, right? Yeah.
Now, to be fair, I think something to take in mind, this is also coinciding at a time when more and more colleges are not choosing commencement speakers that they think will challenge their graduates' political views. This is an article I have seen. Okay. So I bring that up as we're probably seeing more business people doing these speeches.
Why did they get a real estate agent in to speak?
Because they don't want to have a politician. I would be mad too. But hey, here we are, right? Do I think it's a good idea? I do think you have to mention it. Because
probably so.
It is, what they've said is right, but are you giving a direction? And then also, is the direction something that you think will actually help these kids? And do you see that going on? And that could be lost in an echo chamber because the United States, and not just the United States, but every facet that we've seen AI in, I think I've used this word once before, is trying to manufacture demand. Yeah. Because again, it's not making money. And I bring that up every single time because that is the driver behind almost every action that we see in an AI company is a
Where's
promise.
The ROI?
It's a promise of something, but they're not making money. They're just spending money. And a lot of these companies are not non-for-profits. They want, their incentive is to make money. So pushing AI into everything and pushing people to use it. You should use it in your job. You have to use it. This is going to be the technology of the future. I think it is going to be the technology of the future.
But
it's really great at a lot of things. It's really great at not making us do a million bajillion math problems at once. It does stuff like help rural healthcare, by mapping flight paths and things like that. It's also being used in the DoD to shoot drones. So maybe we should be more cautious and more.
Let's think about it.
I'm kind of
Let's
rambling here, but the point is that it is the technology of the future, but
big but. Yeah. It's just not something that I think the kids want to be hearing about right now.
When they don't have any job prospects because everything that they're reading says that there are no entry-level jobs anymore because we're using AI.
Another notable figure has come out against AI, and while
friend
he's
of
not,
the pod.
Well, yes, friend of the pod. While he's not making any commencement speeches about it, that's because he's doing something much, much bigger.
Yeah.
So Pope Leo published his first encyclical. That is a formal letter by the Pope that he addresses to the bishops, but that is generally intended for the entire Roman Catholic Church. He put this out on May 25th, addressing the AI issue specifically, and he is not about it. In the document, he repeatedly blasted the concentration of power and data in the hands of so few people in the private sector as a danger, especially to children and the most vulnerable. And he called for external regulation, writing,
quote,
"It is not enough to invoke ethics in the abstract. Robust legal frameworks, independent oversight, informed users, and a political system that does not abdicate its responsibility are required."
End quote.
Period.
Drop the mic.
Amanda, I've long been a lapsed Catholic, but this almost makes me feel like I could maybe go back to church.
Listen, I'm not even Catholic. I'm Protestant, but maybe I'll attend a mass.
What
I don't know.
if-
Am I allowed to do that?
What if they were right all along?
Listen, there is something to having. This is what we said about Pope Leo. I got ahead of you. I'm so sorry. This is what we said about Pope Leo and like the importance of Pope Francis is like there is a lot of value in having a moral authority.
I think so too.
To look up to
Yeah.
and say, hey, we should not use this technology to kill people.
We should not be invading countries for no reason.
We shouldn't just say, well, AI should be monitored. We need to actually monitor it. Like, we need to check how it is affecting the most vulnerable. That includes children. That includes poor people. That includes people who are being shot at by drones driven by AI.
The meek who will inherit the earth.
Yes. And look at that. A little less lapsed. You got 1% back.
Just a little bit. Yeah. Maybe. I thought it was really interesting. The encyclical is really long. I couldn't read the entire thing, but
it's like written doctrine that people should study.
Yeah, it's basically a thesis. It is in a way.
This is like he is building on the Catholic doctrine.
Right. And one part that I thought was interesting was he called back to another encyclical by Pope John Paul II that was basically about the dignity of work and how unemployment is something evil and it's bad for society. And like, I have really been thinking about that a lot because that ties directly into the whole AI thing. We were just saying, it robs us of those entry-level jobs. And like, if you don't work, not everybody likes to work. Working is just a kind of a fact of life, but like, there is a dignity to working. Like if you are unemployed for a long period of time, you know what I'm talking about. If you've ever experienced a period of unemployment, like you start to feel crazy.
I mean,
right?
I think there's like two levels to that. Cause also like that's a really huge pillar of like, I'm Protestant. I'm American Baptist. Not Southern Baptist, American Baptist, but
important distinction.
It's huge for me and my crew to make that distinction. But like in Protestantism, there is a lot about like there's a lot of moral authority given to work. Like you should always be working.
Yeah,
and I think that that's not always good. I think that can sometimes be a little much.
Puritan kind of thing.
It's built off of puritanical ideals, but. I do think like when we look at it as like the dignity of work in terms of like allowing people the dignity to make a life for themselves.
Yes.
There is a lot to that. And I think that is something that you have to consider because as we brought up, I think 2 episodes ago, when we talk about when people make these promises like, don't worry, AI will do all the jobs, I repeatedly asked, well, what about the people who do those jobs?
Right.
They don't have an answer for that because they're not interested in that answer.
What do we do? We have to take care of those people. Yeah.
Right. So I think there's stuff to that as well. It's just very interesting to see many different people have such varied takes and then to see this tied into what I do think was inevitable considering how we're seeing more and more of this idea of like the ghost in the machine, the soul in the machine. Yeah. And then I think he called this, or at least he referenced like something called like the wonderful humanity or like the magnanimous humanity. But that religious difference between like the human spirit and taking care of that versus the artificial spirit.
Yeah, so true. No,
there's a lot of like idolatry we could pull into this, but that's getting like religious. Too religious for this.
He basically called upon the Tower of Babel imagery when he was explaining the evils of AI. I mean, it all makes
it's
very
a parable.
good sense.
It's a good parable.
It all makes very good sense. So, yes.
That's my Pope.
Thank you, Pope, friend of the pod. I'm sure we'll be discussing him again. But that is it for today's news report.
Yeah.
A quick reminder that you can find all of our referenced articles in the show notes for today's episode. I'm Hannah Belinsky.
I'm Amanda Stevens.
Thanks for joining us on air today. Tune in tomorrow for more programs by Radio Taiwan International. And in the meantime, remember to stop scrolling and touch grass. We'll see you next week.
Bye.